This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another round of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge here on RaceSpot TV, Friday primetime, streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network. I am Conor Matic. I'll be joined by Mr. Paul Smith as ever for these broadcasts. We're on round number 8 here of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and we take ourselves to the epic Italian racetrack that is Monza. It's a bit early in the morning here in sim time. The track temperature hasn't been able to climb as high as it perhaps would do a little bit later on in the day. Clear conditions in terms of the sky, and the winds are very, very calm indeed. But before we get ourselves to our qualifying results, Paul, you have a lap of the track.
Yeah, certainly do. And well, here we are on board then. Once again, our VRS hot lap, brought to you by Virtual Racing School. Important to get a good run out of the parabolica, then carry as much speed down this straight. It's a long straight here at this fantastic venue at Monza. Going past the old grandstands and past the old tower there on the left-hand side, you're going to be looking at past the 150-metre board, onto the brakes hard, one of the first of the hard braking zones. Get the right, compromise your right a little bit to get a better run out the left, because you need to carry the speed then on the exit of this corner into Curva Grande. Absolutely flat out around this corner. Exits around these chicanes is crucial here at this track. As you head on through underneath the bridge, then we're going to be seeing that 100-metre board, and then again onto the brakes, hard braking down to third gear. Use the curbs on this chicane here, the Della Roggia, and then out that one in towards Lesmo 1. Fourth gear corner, dab of brakes, get the front end in around the middle of the corner. Don't run too far out wide. There's new off-track limits here around Monza. Through Lesmo 2, hook it in and get on the power nice and early, because you need to carry that speed all the way down here as you head towards the Ascari chicane. And rather quick chicane is this one. It's fourth gear on the entry. Come underneath the little advertising board and hit the brakes at 100 metres. Jump up over the curb on the left, use a little bit of the curb on the right, and then use all the curb on the left again to carry as much speed down the back straight to the world famous parabolica, one of the most famous final corners in all of motorsport. And well, he's coming in towards, see that patch of green tarmac on the left hand side? Brake just as you get to the end of that. Get the car in nice and early, get on the power, let the car just run out wide, use as much of the track as possible out there across the curb, and that is your VRS hot lap of Monza.
Absolutely fantastic insight there with Martin Kroenke on board with a lap at this epic Italian racetrack. Well, in terms of the action out there on circuit, though, we're just drawing ourselves towards the end of qualifying here for this particular round. Just a couple of stragglers out there trying to get themselves their final flying lap in here, which will, of course, be their fastest here, as we usually talk about with the new tyre model here, Paul. Once those tyres come up to temperature for that second flying lap, that's when you're really trucking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a funny track as this one, because there's actually not that many corners and you've got long straights. It takes a little bit longer for your tyres to come in and build up temperature and pressure. So you're going to see these drivers have fun on these opening laps. And qualifying, as you mentioned, is really crucial round here. One man that we're going to keep an eye on here as he's heading towards the end of his lap is Jamie Fluke, the Apex Racing driver. He's a World Championship driver in the Porsche Esport Super Cup. Also competed in the VRS GT World Championship as well. So he's hoping to do well because he's the last of the drivers yet to set a lap time.
Absolutely, the only driver, like you quite rightfully mentioned, yet to get themselves onto the score sheet here. Out of the parabolic he goes. You can take that characteristic wide line that you talked about during that lap guide. Jamie Fluke towards that start-finish line. What's it going to be? It is a 1:59.304, and that has just completely demolished the field here in qualifying. He gets himself pole position.
What a lap time! Made it count because his first lap didn't count here in this one, so he's certainly done a good job. Pulled that one out the bag. What a lap time! And Jamie Fluke, he's a quick lad around here. He really is. I even told him last night in a race that I did, can you slow down a bit? You're a bit too fast. But anyway, we're getting ready for the grid.
No brakes on the Jamie Fluke train, it seems. This is your starting grid here for this evening's race. Jamie Fluke pole position after that fantastic lap in the dying moments of qualifying. Adecopa Lopez will start on the front row with the Northern Irish driver. Thomas Gibson and Kimmo Soimonen will comprise of row 2, with Miguel Freitas and Kane Halliburton cycling things back to P6. Johan Harf and Koen Klopman back to P8 on the grid today. Joan Dalmasas Torres and Diogo Pinto will bring things down to P10 with Dominic Olivier and Daniel Muth P11 and P12 respectively. Marcus Vogt and Xavier Sanchez in P13 and 14, with P15 going to Tim Graven. Adam Hedgecock in P16 here today for the start of the race. Alfonso Mulas there, P17, with Juan Parada in P18. P19, the last spot on the grid, will go to Daniel Jerez Yuan there in that number 14 car. So everyone just getting themselves stacked up behind that 911 Cup pace car that we have here in iRacing. Just a couple of stragglers to go before we get ourselves that just under half a lap here to that start-finish line.
Yeah, and you don't. Again, it's a cold track here, so getting a bit of tyre temperature build-up is going to be crucial for these drivers. And it's mainly the rears that seem to always be the issue for these drivers. So laps 1 and 2. Maybe a little bit sketchy going into the braking zone, so you'll see them taking it a little bit easier into braking zones on lap 1. Lap 2, you get a bit more confidence, and then from lap 3 onwards, you're absolutely on it with this car. And these drivers, they've had enough practice now of getting used to the car and getting used to how it drives, so they'll be feeling confident going into this Friday primetime race. I can't believe that we're already so far down the season already.
Yeah, it's, time flies when you're having fun, and this series has certainly been very, very fun indeed. Round 8 of the season, of course, the usual 12-week season that we have here for official races on iRacing. You see that pace car pull off, the rest of the field in tow as well. The tyre warming shenanigans start perhaps a little bit further back as well, but although saying that, the front row not doing as much warming, at least the side motion, but what they're doing is try and get those burnouts done, which is a better method of getting heat into the tyres here. Yeah,
just power brakes. You could get a lot of heat into the tyre without having to weave so much. So it's all about utilising the power and then hit the brakes, because the brakes dissipate heat into the tyre carcass.
Yeah, but you've only got a limited time and a limited track to be able to do the whole warming procedure, so those tyres will still be relatively cold coming to the race start here. You can see the entire field get its way side by side coming up through Parabolica, and now in a couple of moments the field will be under the control of Jamie Fluke. Pace car on towards the lane. Let's get another round of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge started. Green flag here at Monza, and Fluke already has a huge jump over the rest of the field. But who is going to fall at that first chicane, which can be so sketchy on the first lap? Side by side for P2 between Gibson and Copa Lopez. They'll still remain side by side on the entry to the Redfield chicane for the first time. Looks like the top 5 have gone through relatively okay. The rest of the field similarly so as well. It looks like that first chicane has taken no casualties here, Paul, as most people are single file already.
Yeah, they certainly are. Fluke's trying to make a breakaway at the front here, I notice. He's trying to get away because he realises how strong the draft is around this track as we're heading to the Della Roggia now. It's a question of how can they all get through? Do they all make it through there? We'll look further back, side-by-side action a bit further back between Pinto and Torres. As well, Graven's getting caught up in that as well, so we're still side-by-side between those two. Absolutely neck and neck between them, and it's all getting a bit tasty behind them as well.
Yeah, getting a little bit close quarters, 2 by 2 into the second les mode there. Torres might end up losing another position here. Tim Graven, he has the momentum down the hill towards Ascari, but in still no position to 100% get this pass done. Still a lot more work to do for the driver of the number 7 as he takes the outside, coming in towards Ascari. There we go, but Graven around the outside, and that orange Audi, he's been able to do it. Everyone else single file there for the very, very fast chicane, and now looks like we'll still have some more action here on the way down and towards the Parabolica for the first time, because you have Olivier, you have Daniel Muth as well, having a little bit of a battle. You have a battle towards the front of the field as well, because now that is Thomas Gibson getting himself to the pointy end.
Yep, he's at the front of the field now as they come to the end of the first lap, but still plenty of action to go along. And the thing is, it's going to be like this all the way through the race. We can guarantee you of that, not unless there's some shenanigans happen. But the draft has a really strong effect around here. About 1.2 seconds, you still feel the effect of it. And Fluke back up into the lead there. Adecoba Lopez actually getting a slow exit out of the Retifilia and through the go into Curva Grande. These drivers, they're starting to get into the stride here and starting to push forward, and it's going to be that give and take at the front. They don't want to fight too hard here though, Connery, because if you start fighting too hard, somebody can make a breakaway.
I am noticing a little bit of bump drafting down these straights as well, so that would be an interesting element if a race, in the final couple of laps was decided in terms of who helps who. But for now, it's every man for himself at the moment. Gibson and Fluke trying to break away at the front of the field. They have that gap, that couple of tenths of a second gap to Adecopa Lopez, but due to the effect of the slipstream here, that's going to be eaten all up by the driver of the number 1 in quite quick fashion. You need to have such an advantage here to try and break away. Gibson getting very close to your race leader of Fluke into the Ascari chicane for the second time in this event, but deciding not to go for the move. And I don't really think you can really go for moves this early on, because yes, you're going to get ahead maybe for 1 or 2 corners, and then instantly the driver ahead or that is now behind, has another chance at you. So Gibson, he's just opting to bump draft your leader down towards the Parabolica here.
I mean, the thing, as you can see the entire field in one camera shot there. That's how close the drivers are. But yeah, you can almost treat it like a cycle race here around here. It's almost like a NASCAR race around here, actually, with the way that the battling can be and the bump draft and how that comes into effect. As across the line they come now. Fluke, fastest lap, but that's hardly a surprise. He's at the front of the field. There's Daniel Muth now getting the fastest lap, and here comes Thomas Gibson down the inside. He's protecting his second place rather than attacking Jamie.
Yeah, he gave Jamie a big shove coming down that straight, and he had to be careful about how firm you do that, because you may be on the edge of collecting a couple of 4Xs here and there, which not exactly ideal considering the instant limit, and of course how easy it is to get yourself a single instant point coming out of the 2 Lesmos in the middle of the lap. So you do have to be a little bit careful, but Gibson again just holding station for now. Not really wanting to challenge for the race lead, because there's not really much point in being in the race lead at this portion of the race anyway.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's all a patient game around here. I mean, me and you, we've called many races around here. I mean, we called the finale of the Porsche Esports Super Cup around here, and it was just all absolutely epic racing that they were all together. Is that slow down penalty there for Soimonen? That's how easy it could catch you out, and as soon as you're out of that draft, because you haven't served a slowdown penalty, here come the rest of the field bearing down on him and getting past. That's Freitas making it past, and Cohen Klopman making it past as well.
Yeah, he managed to collect that one through the second apex of the De La Roja, so left it until the exit the second Lesmo to serve that one. iRacing's a little bit generous in terms of the time that you get to serve your slowdown penalty, so Simon trying to find the best point to be able to do so with the minimum amount of positions lost here. That's really what you have to do when you are stuck with one of those penalties. But battling a little bit further back, though, that's Juan Domesses Torres making a move on Dominic Olivier there. So Olivier losing one position there, as this is basically the front of your, what I would say is your second train here, as it looks like the top 9 or so cars have really managed to break away. And here comes the move for the race lead now. Thomas Gibson, fed up of staying in second place. Koba Lopez trying to shoot the gap in the middle, but that gap will be all closed up. Gibson on the inside line for the first apex, becomes the outside for the second. A little bit of trading paint through that second apex, but Gibson, he's able to get the better traction off the corner, and Fluke may end up losing one more position here, as Koba Lopez now has the inside for Curva Grande.
Yeah, well, all that's going on. Cohen Klopman has ended up dropping right down your order to the back of your field. We'll get a look at that in a second. Just waiting to see what happens between these. Nothing happening there into the second chicane, so we'll have a look at what happens here to Cohen Klopman, and it is Simonen who's behind him here, and we'll try and get a look from above. So Simonen makes the move down the inside. Is there going to be a little bit of a quarter panel here?
Ooh.
Goes across, and it's going to be a quarter panel. Well, I mean, Cohen, I'm sorry to say this, but you squeezed him. You went across and squeezed him, and that's what happens in this Audi.
Order should have called not clear as he tried to come across the track to take your normal exit to your to the rectification chicane, and spun himself across the nose of Kimmo Simonen there. So that is unfortunate for Cohen Klopman. He gets cycled towards a couple of positions further down as he has to try and get that car recovered. But back towards the front of the field, you can see Gibson at the front. Here comes Fluke then on Koba Lopez, as we see Tim Graven have a couple of issues in that number 7 car. What has happened to him? Looks like it's coming up towards Ascari, battling with the number 15 car. 2 into 1 doesn't quite go there between himself and Juan Parada Jr. And Graven finds himself in the tyre barriers. Things are heating up here for P2 on live pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. We go back to live then, and Koba Lopez putting the pressure on Fluke, but Fluke's got a friend there behind him. Ewan Half now joining in this battle. Kind Halliburton is not that far behind them either, so all of a sudden this train of cars that was about 8 or 9 long has just whittled its way down to 6 here now, as they're going through your picture now. And Koba Lopez is just having to be patient in 3rd place, but he's got that pressure from behind Ewan Half, as Oliveira now looking to lose a position to Marcus Vogt, as Adam Hedgecock behind them as well, further down your order.
Marcus Vogt looks like he's going to have the inside in towards the De La Roja, late on the brakes, and he's able to make the apex of the corner. You can see that car going a little bit squirrely on the brakes, but he was able to make the corner regardless and make the pass complete over Dominic Olivier as well. So very well worked there for the driver of the number 18 as he tries to work himself up through the field in that second pack that we have here today. Riding on board, though, with Koba Lopez, who's been in the thick of things somewhat here at the front of the field, always looking to try and make these passes, always trying to get himself further up on that podium. He stands in the on the 3rd step right now, but Koba Lopez, a true racer in my opinion. Especially when it comes to the latter portions of the race, there's going to be no holds barred. Gloves are going to be off, whatever metaphor you want to throw in there. Koba Lopez will be super, super aggressive.
Oh, absolutely, and it's what we love about Ade, is they're still battling further back in your picture. In fact, we're going to look back to that because Olivier isn't having any of it. He wants back past. The cars in front as well. Muth and Torres are battling. It's 2 by 2 by 2 in contact for Olivier with the 15, and that is Parada Jr.
Yeah, the geodesic racing car being spun there at the Parabolica, and that's all on Parada Jr. A little bit later on the brakes, runs straight into the back of the number 8 car. We'll see the onboard into the braking zone. didn't quite get on the anchors as firmly as he should perhaps, and just run straight into the back of his competitor. He comes off better for wear, but that has got to be a hard one to take for Olivier. Meanwhile, on the live pictures, a big gaggle coming down into the first chicane. This is the one involving Prada, who was involved in that incident. You also have Sanchez involved in this one, the number 10 car. You also have Koen Klopman, who's starting to try to recover from that contact in towards the Ritz chicane just a couple of laps ago. So on a bit of a recovery drive for Klopman, positions on the cards for him as Sanchez tries to work his way through on Prada, but not able to do it. And now he comes under threat from Klopman, who just slings it down the inside at Adela Roger. Sanchez gets himself a bit of the grass on the entry and drops the position. So that's instantly from attack to defense there for Sanchez. Yeah,
and it just shows how one little thing, one little mistake can cost you dearly, especially in the draft train. And speaking of the draft train, 0.6 of a second between Fluke and Gibson. So Gibson's trying to make that breakaway, and I think they may be slowing each other down in that battle for second. They need to work together, and at the moment they seem to be doing that. You mentioned about the little gaggles of cars. Well, look at the track map there in the bottom right hand corner. You can see how there's that big gap. You see the cars just coming round the exit of the Scara chicane in the top of your picture there. That's that second gaggle of cars that you see on the track map there.
Yeah, so definitely the field being split into two trains right now. This leading train, though, has had quite a bit of action. You can see, actually, Gibson just hogging that inside all the way around Parabolica, just trying to break the draft to the cars behind, and he's doing relatively well at it because Jamie Fluke might come under threat this time in towards the chicane. The first chicane, Copa Lopez angling towards the inside, not quite late enough on the brakes to draw himself alongside that Apex Racing Team car. But Gibson at the front of this field is doing a good job managing who gets the draft behind.
Yeah, he is. He's doing a fantastic job at the front there, and you need to know how to race at the front of the field here at Monza, because it is a unique track in terms of road courses. Here comes Corbin Lopez looking to the inside. He's not going to be alongside Fluke though, so thinks better of it. But as I say, it's a unique track when it comes to the challenge of coming around this Monza circuit, especially at the front of a pack of cars. And really, you've got that trouble of, am I overworking the tyres here? Am I pushing too hard? Because then you don't want to end up in the grasps of that just swarm of cars that are right behind. By the way, I want to point this out: 3 seconds covering the top 8 drivers.
Yeah, it's brilliant to see, and 7/10 of that is just taken up by the gap between P1 and P2, so everything a little bit more congested further back from that second step of the podium. Fluke needs to concentrate and just keeping himself in contention, keeping himself within the slipstream of Gibson, as Gibson actually runs wide there for the race lead through the Ascari chicane. Still 0.7 of a second between P1 and P2 though. So Fluke kind of starting to get into the danger zone a little bit of losing the draft to the race leader because of all the infighting that this pack has had. Meanwhile, Pinto there, inside the line for the Parabolica over Freitas there. As Freitas will have to defend on the outside here, has the better line out of the Parabolica. Of course, you want as much track exit as possible coming through that final corner to try and maximize all your momentum, all your straight line speed down this straight. Freitas is keeping himself in contention here, but things might just get themselves a little bit interesting further forward. Not quite. Everyone's still staying single file here as they hit the braking zone, that very big braking zone, into the first corner. So everyone just, I get the feeling they're being a little bit calmer than the opening couple of laps of this race when it comes to making up these positions.
Yeah, I think it's all settled down here. And they're all sort of working together because they realise that there's no point fighting at this stage as we reach the halfway point of this race. There's no point fighting tooth and nail over second place and let the leader pull away. You might as well just stick as you are, work together, and then start battling when it comes to the final 5 minutes or so, final 3 laps maybe. So that's the long-term tactics. That's where you've seen the racecraft of these drivers coming to the fore, Whereas, you compare it to maybe some more inexperienced people running around here, they'll go, oh, I've got an opportunity to make a move, make a dive, not make it work, slow each other down, and before you know it, the guy in front is 2.5, 3 seconds ahead.
Yeah, it's patience is so important in the middle portion of the race here. Just keep yourself in contention, keep yourself in that front train, as Gibson had a big moment there out of Ascari. That's the driver that's currently in the race lead, and he's gone wide a couple of times there already. I'm really scared he's going to take a bit too much of a big bite out of the apple, and is going to get punished for it at some point. But right now, he's been getting away with it.
If you hit that curb on the final left-hander for the Ascari chicane, if you hit that wrong, it can completely just send you sideways through the exit of Ascari chicane across that part where the junior course comes onto the back straight there. So yeah, he's pushing, and quite rightly he's pushing, because he can't get away from the drivers behind. He just can't make that breakaway. And if he's not too careful, he'll start making a few more mistakes that will end up losing him positions.
Yeah, and that gap has been all gobbled up at this point. Jamie Fluke, that's a gap of 0.7 of a second between P1 and P2. More like 0.4 of a second right now, as we can see the top 8 up on screen. So it's Gibson, Fluke, Lopez, Harth as your top 4, then Halliburton, Pinto, Freitas, and Soimonen, bringing things down to your top 8 in this field. And that is your leading train. There we go. It's quite neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm liking that. My OCD likes it especially. But through the chicane further down, Muth I think he had a slowdown penalty on the last lap, so he lost the position to Torres. He's now under pressure from Vogt behind, and he could come under pressure there. They've got a 2-second gap between them and Cohen Klopman, who's on that recovery drive up into 12th place. And here's a good piece of news, Connery, that we've not mentioned. Every single car that started this race is currently in this race.
Yeah, I mean, you have and it's going to be in one of these two trains, with the exception of Tim Graven, who had that incident. So he's sort of the Lone Ranger at the back of the field right now in dead last, P19, but still trying to get to the end of the race. But like quite rightfully mentioned, everyone else still in this race. So the rate of attrition, the best it can be here in this one. Riding on board, though, with that Apex Racing team car of Johan Harth, currently 4th in line in this leading pack. And now, coming up towards 12 to go, I think it's still a little bit too early to be making moves at this stage. Maybe we get into maybe the final 6 minutes, and then maybe you'll start to see the big money moves being made. Harth, as you can see, not quite going to go for it this time in towards the first chicane. Koba Lopez similarly so in his particular situation. So this is basically just setting the stage for what might just be a bonkers finish.
Yeah, it certainly could be a big-time finish here. Of course, I remember a couple of years ago in the GT World Championship how we had the finish across the line. Oh, speaking across the line, there's a bit of action further back. Olivier, he's not had the best of races as Dominic, it must be said. Getting involved in a little bit of shenanigans at the Retifilia, and now behind Juan and Mulas are side by side through the Curva Grande. So those two battling out for the final penultimate spots on the field, because of course Tim Graven's about 5-6 seconds behind these two. So they've sorted themselves out there. But yeah, there was a little bit of shenanigans going on at the chicane, but it's sorted itself out.
Yeah, just squabbling for positions a little bit further back. Every position matters here in iRacing. Of course, championship points are awarded to every single position, although, of course, those championship points change depending on the strength of field, which is at about 5,354 here today. So a pretty high strength of field, all things considered. The highest R rating driver, that's Koba Lopez with 8,475. So big names showing up to this race. You know, like we mentioned week on week, we have the likes of Jamie Fluke, especially in, of course, competitor in the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and of course the rest in peace VRS iRacing GT World Championship. May we get replaced by a better series at some point. Who knows? But
Don't say
right
better,
now,
different.
oh well, different, yeah, I suppose. But inside,
side by side.
yeah, inside 10 minutes remaining here. Now here comes Copa Lopez down the inside for P2 perhaps, but he's going to come under threat from everyone else behind because Yahath was trying to find his way through as well. So now, final 10 minutes, Copa Lopez is starting to think, hey, I want to get myself into that P2 now, be able to challenge for that race lead at the end as we have a bit of contact with the back.
Yeah, that was Torres getting in contact with Vogt, and Muth, I believe, had to take to the escape road as well. Colin Klotman now putting the pressure on. The man who started in 8th place in this race, getting squeezed on the exit, the Curva Grande. Not the best idea to do that on the brakes. And Klotman, he could end up with a slowdown penalty there because he cut right across the chicane. Doesn't appear, does he? He's defending the inside. It appears he's got away with that one as Muth ahead of Vogt. They're battling it out as well. So it's almost as if the blue touch paper has been lit and we're all standing back now.
And everyone agreed that happens at 10 minutes. That's basically what has happened here. Just like, okay, guys, we can just, you know, take it easy. But when 10 minutes remaining, that's when we decide to go ham. Well, let's see if things get a little bit more spicy here at the front of the field. That's where, you know, the big positions are to play for Fluke. As you can see in that number 3 car in front of Copa Lopez, who we briefly rode on board for. Gibson characteristically just maintaining around about a 5, 6, 7/10 of a second gap at the front of this field. He's doing very well indeed. Meanwhile, there's a bit of a scuffle a little bit further back with Harth and Halliburton. We've got Pinto involved in this one as well. Harth has lost a lot of time here and is at risk of losing the top 3 here. He has to try and defend all the way down this pit straight. Look at the moves there from Johan Harth. That's a little bit non-kosher as Halliburton's been sent into the concrete barrier down towards the chicane.
I had a feeling that was coming at some point. You can see the damage on the front of Halliburton's car. Let's have a look from up above then. They were bump drafting all the way down the straight in towards the first chicane and then onto the brakes, and Halliburton was... That's very difficult. When you're going that speed, going together, and we'll have a look back again at that one. Who was it that behind? It was Pinto, wasn't it? We'll look on board with Pinto then. Have a look quickly at this one, see what happened here. Onto the brakes to go now. Oh, Halliburton's just come across slightly. It's hard to apportion any blame there, it really is.
It's difficult because you have the whole situation of Harth just doing whatever he was doing at the front of that battle, just like the weaving back and forth down the pit straight. Not exactly the best racecraft there, you have to argue, with the multiple moves, especially coming down towards a braking zone, as Prada Jr. has had himself a bit of an off there. That number 15 driver into issues here late on in the race. Is it contact with anyone else, or is it just him with a single car mistake? It looks like it's going to be contact. You can see a car getting itself sent down towards the inside. That was the number 5. That was the number 8. Yeah, that was the Dominic Olivier. So he hasn't had the greatest races.
And now that second group, that second peloton is really starting to heat up as well. There's damage on cars. It's really picking up. Business has picked up, everybody, as JR would say. And well, the front of the field, half a second between your leader and second place now. That's spread out a bit.
It has, but Fluke just, you know, still doing what he needs to do and still keeping himself within that draft. But Gibson has been absolutely brilliant with managing this gap at the front of the field. But is it going to be all for nothing? Copa Lopez with the big threatening gesture on the way into turn 1, but no committal behind the big show, as now looks like everyone else able to get themselves through that chicane at the start of the lap relatively okay. Coming up towards 5 minutes to go, and still everyone in this sort of top 4 or so cars. This front pack has spread out a little bit. Might just be able to win this race as we see Klopman. Oh no, looks like it's going to be a big 3 wide here down into the first corner. 4 wide.
Oh dear.
Ooh.
This was always going to end in tears, and that is exactly where the tears happened. Wow, amazingly, Klopman missed them on that second run through there. He did a good job there, to be fair, of recovering that, because that could have been a big instant, and there's a big instant for Klopman. Well, it's been a bit of a punching bag here today.
Yeah, he has. He's been taking all the hits.
I think Torres has got a disqualification from that.
Yeah, I think so. So that's unfortunate. That's going to be your first retirement in this race. Disqualification within 5 minutes to go. You can see the big sends down the inside, the car right in the back of the picture, running straight into the back of Klopman. There's no excuse for that one. Going over the instant point limit, that's disqualification. So yeah, that one's a pretty clear-cut case, if you ask me.
Yeah, that was missed breaking point, we will say, on that one. It's the ultimate missed breaking point, is that one, if you ask me. But your leaders now, 2nd, 3rd and 4th are all together. I just feel that Gibson has just managed this front of this field nicely here. Maybe he was just holding back just a little bit at the front, just to look after his tyres, look after his car, because he knew that they wouldn't necessarily battle with him early on. But now we're into the final 4 minutes. This is where it's going, because Lopez is making moves on Jamie Fluke.
Yeah, this is exactly what Gibson wants to see in his wing mirrors. The battling behind for those final couple of steps on the podium makes him feel a little bit safer when it comes to that race winning position. Through Curva Grande, we've got about 3 laps to go here with the time remaining in this race. Copa Lopez looking to try and get himself onto that 2nd step of the podium. Is going to be a big move here down the inside at the Del Roja? No, he's just going to stay in line, but brings it quite tight to the back bumper of Fluke there, heading their way through the left and then the right. But, you know, still it's that everlasting gap of 0.7 of a second that Gibson has been able to manage at the front of the field. It's going to be really, really tough for anyone else to win this race, I think.
It certainly is, and Gibson has done a fantastic job at the front there, I have to admit. We've lost another driver, by the way. Muth is the latest one out of this race, so all of a sudden those instant points are adding up. And of course, a half-hour race, and you have a total of how many instants? Is it 20 or 17? It's 17 instant points to play with, so yeah, it's all been a bit hard and a bit frenetic. Speaking of frenetic, now Lopez is going left, going right. He doesn't know which way to go.
No, he doesn't, and Hath also getting himself involved in this one as well, so it's Copa Lopez in a bit of an Apex Racing Team sandwich, which itself is in a core sim racing sandwich here. So multiple levels of sandwich going on inside this front train as Copa Lopez. Here we go, driver's right-hand side, coming down the pit straight. Look at them, they're gaining so much over Gibson. 3 wide for the race lead on the way down and towards the first chicane. Has Gibson got himself a slowdown penalty? I think he has. Now game on for this race lead. Fluke, he's outbroke himself into the first corner. Now he battles with his teammate for P2. So Copa Lopez inside one chicane goes from 3rd to 1st. Now it's game on.
I tell you what, is this the final lap as well? We're very close if not. Oh, it's going to be a close one as that, but I don't know what happened to the speed of Gibson there at all. I can't see where he would have got a slow down penalty either. Fluke's going for the move now. He's down to 4th out of all of this, and he'll be disappointed with that so far. But all of a sudden that front battle has just changed on a knife edge there. But 3 wide, you called it, down into turn 1. We'll have to have a look at that afterwards, after the race, because this race is not over yet.
Well, some people in the chat are speculating that it might be a fuel concern for Gibson with him going so slow down the straight, and you can definitely see why. He's been at the pointy end of the field for the vast majority of this race. So yeah, You can see on board, you can hear it in towards the Ascari chicane. He wants this race to be ending at the end of this lap instead at the end of the next one. We are so marginal here when it comes to whether we get another lap or not, but it looks like we are, as Koba Lopez at the front of the field half just gives him a big shunt on the way in towards the Parabolica. So now in through the final corner, 15 seconds left remaining. My timing screen says another lap, but what will it actually be here? 10 seconds out of the final corner. We will get another lap here. Start finish line, 2 seconds remaining. We're going to go one more lap of racing as Johan Half to the outside here of Koba Lopez for the race lead. He's been able to get that position done. Returns back to the inside to try and defend. The big old swap in towards the first corner. Koba Lopez can't challenge, but there's a bunch of hungry piranhas behind.
Yeah, there certainly are, and you're absolutely right about the fuel concerns of Gibson. You could hear him lifting and coasting going into the Ascari chicane. Juan Parada's on pit road, so that must be a fuel issue for them as well. So all of a sudden, these drivers, the pace of this front pack has just been absolutely on the limit, and it's showing with the amount of fuel that these drivers carry on this car. You don't want to carry more than you need to. Half slow off of the De La Rocha. Here comes Koba Lopez.
Here he goes outside for Lesmo. One can't quite make it work out there, but look at the exit speed he's been able to get. Brings it alongside for the second Lesmo. This is still so difficult for Koba Lopez to try and make a pass here, so Johan Half keeps himself ahead for now. We have Fluke also involved here for P3. Gonna have to go around the outside for the first part of Ascari here. Drivers right-hand side of the racetrack. They all get congested up into one portion. A big shove to Johan Half to keep him ahead here from Jamie Fluke. Koba Lopez still trying to fight it out on the inside there, but he gets spun there across the grass. He's able to keep it together, able to keep himself inside this front train. Gibson's basically out of fuel at this point. He has to back out of the situation, but Johan Half at the front of the field. He's got an 0.8 of a second gap. I think he has this one. P2 might be still a big question though, because Kimmo Soimonen out of nowhere is locked onto the back of Fluke, but he needs a good exit out the Parabolica to be able to make this one work. I don't think he has. Johan Half, what a frantic last couple of laps. He comes across the line to win here this round of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge on RaceSpot TV Friday prime time.
Well, plenty happened there in those final 2 laps. We were waiting patiently for that one. There's still drivers coming across the line pretty close together. Oh, Gibson is out of fuel. Can he get to the line? It's heartbreaking. Go on, you can make it. The timing line is right there. And across the line he goes. Wow, from the lead of the race all the way down to 16th place.
He did such a good job at managing the gap, but maybe he was just managing it a little bit too well, going a little bit too quickly, and the fuel just simply didn't last that one extra lap. And it was 2 seconds, you know, the margin between whether we get another lap or not. So that is such heartbreak there for Gibson, because if it was 1 lap shorter, the race distance, then he would have been okay, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be for Gibson. Here are your official race results. Johan Half, Apex Racing Team, from 7th place on the grid to P1. Jamie Fluke, he was up there all day, but when it comes to that final lap, contact with Koba Lopez basically sealed his fate for P number 2. Kimmo Soimonen P3 of Koba Lopez comes across the line after recovering from that last lap there into 4th place. Not the podium he was looking for, but still a decent result. Diogo Pinto will finish in P5 with Miguel Freitas in P6. Ken Halberton will finish 7th with Dominic Olivier 8th. Marcus Vogt 9th, and Xavier Sanchez ends up with a top 10. Daniel Jerez won in P11 with Adam Hedgecock gaining a couple of positions into P12. Tim Graven P13 there for him, as Cohen Copland, well, recovery drive was in full effect but didn't exactly work. P14 for him. Alfonso Urita Mulas P15. Thomas Gibson though leading for the vast majority of this race, but with 2 laps to go realized that he wasn't quite hitting his fuel numbers. So from P1 down to P16 he goes. Juan Prada Jr. P17 with Daniel Muth and Dalmases Torres being the only two drivers that are laps down. Well, we'll just have to take ourselves a little bit of a breather here on Racesport TV, but don't go away because we have the post-race show coming up just after this. Welcome back, everyone, to the post-race show here on Racesport TV Friday primetime on the iRacing Esports Network as well. What a brilliant round number 8 of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge we have had. It seems like every single week this series just delivers, and just can't stop delivering here. And, another brilliant finish in this series. I basically want to do Friday primetime with this series until the end of time at this point. I'm sure you won't complain there, Paul.
I won't complain. We almost need to have this as just a permanent fixture of Racesport here, because this series just keeps on giving, and it produces different racing at different tracks, but still fantastic racing as well. We're going to have a look, by the way, at that move for the lead going into the start of the the penultimate lap, should I say, and it's going to be Thomas Gibson that we look at the start here. So you can see how he's at the front of the field, and these two battling behind. I thought they were slowing each other down, and it was going to be Gibson maybe losing out, but then out this corner, out of the parabolica, it's almost as if he's maybe got a spotter or somebody just suddenly gone, this race is going to go an extra lap.
Yeah, and it could have so easily gone either way as well. 2 seconds was the margin. You can see them either side of that Corsen racing car. Well done there to Kobalobas and Fluke to make that happen in a relatively safe fashion with a slow car right in the middle coming down towards the braking zone. But arguably that sort of over-braking in towards the finish game for Fluke basically was a big part in sealing the deal for him in terms of his challenge for the race lead. Just a little bit overdone there. So easily done, especially when you're in a high-pressure situation. Not able to make the apex of the corner. Kobalobas gets himself to the front, but Kobalobas wasn't the one that won this race. It was, of course, Johan Haaf. So, it's... as I said, inside that front group, I said, maybe Gibson, ignoring the whole circumstances with the fuel, it would have been very hard for him to lose the race, but, it's just a miscalculation, and now Johan Haaf able to come away with the race win, but it was everyone else basically in with a shot in that front train. Yeah,
it was, and I want to have a look at what happened to Kobalobas at the Escara chicane, but it was on the last lap, wasn't it? So we'll have to skip ahead, I believe we will. Yes, we will. So we'll skip ahead to the final lap just to watch this battle between him and Johan Haaf. Johan Haaf getting plenty of practice of pack racing for tomorrow in the Thrustmaster iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series. So, if anybody's confident in a close pack racing, then it's Johan right here.
Yeah, it is, as we'll get ourselves through, of course, that final lap. It was a brilliant battle through the De La Roja and through the Lesmos between Coba Lopez and what was going to be half in that situation. Really battling tooth and nail, but of course it was half that came out on top thanks to a little bit of contact between Coba Lopez and Fluke coming into the Ascari chicane, which we'll see in just a couple of moments time. You can see again that fantastic side-by-side battling. The Apex Racing team cars in and amongst the thick of it, with Coba Lopez, the sort of the free agent at the front of the field here, as now you can see through that second Lesmo. But this is where everything came to a head here in the final lap, Paul. This contact between Fluke and Coba Lopez. It was a bit of a squeeze from Coba Lopez, not quite clear to take the track exit. Spun across the nose. I'm not sure what your assessment is.
Oh, look at the draft that Fluke got there going into the Ascari. Half great line through there, and then Lopez the car naturally drifts into that line around that corner. I don't think there's a lot that Jamie could have done. He was there on the outside. He couldn't get out the way, so yeah, it's harsh on Lopez, but he'll be the first one to realise, yeah, I need to maybe try and give a little bit more room, and that's what cost him a potential P2 here today.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is, of course, an Apex Racing Team 1-2 here with Corsim racing well with what was going to be a good showing with Gibson right at the front of the field. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be there, as what a fantastic race we have had here in Monza for this round of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Of course, we've got next week's racing, which will be at a completely different circuit, in terms of the style that you have to drive in, because that is going to have to be at Lime Rock Park. So we've gone from long straights, wide open turns, to basically the shortest, the tightest track on the calendar in the form of Lime Rock Park. So that one's going to be interesting. Very, very close quarters. Should be reminiscent of some great club racing.
Oh, absolutely. Lime Rock that would be good if I could speak.
There we go.
Lime Rock Park produces amazing racing around there. You've got the undulation of going up over the jump and then coming down, steep downhill into the final corner. It makes it a very tricky final corner because you've got to carry the speed all the way through that on the exit down the front straightaway. Turn 1, it's a wide entry, but it then narrows up through turn 1, and of course only one left-hand corner around there as well. So Lime Rock Park, it's going to be an intriguing one. It can be tricky to overtake there, but if you do make the overtake work there, it feels fantastic when you're behind the wheel.
Yep, it really does. Of course, we are a couple of rounds now from the end of the season. And, absolutely fantastic work from the drivers for bringing us the absolutely brilliant racing that we've seen so far this season. Hopefully that carries on towards the end as well as we get into those final couple of rounds. But that's all we're going to have time for here on RaceSpot TV on the iRacing Esports Network. I've been Conor Maddock. That's been Paul Smith. Shout out to Istvan Ballo for our lovely track counts, trackcounts22.com. And we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Goodbye.